Hey guys, how are you guys doing? So yeah, I mean, just came back. So obviously this is, you know, one of the first live streams in quite a long while, to be honest. So really nice to kind of see you guys as well. Hope everyone's doing well. Obviously, I think today terrible press conferences, to be honest. Really kind of difficult, in my opinion, to deal with. But we'll see. We'll see pretty much what happens. Rafiki. Hey, yeah. So I mean, the stream just started. To be honest, I think we have some Indian fans as well who are staying quite late. I believe it's 2:30 a.m. roughly around there. So really respect anyone who's kind of stayed up for the stream. But yeah, I think this is it's gone quite interesting. This kind of international break, right? It kind of benefited me because I wildcarded early. The only mistake I really made, in my opinion, was that I didn't have Greenwood in my team, so I let Greenwood's price rise, and then I kind of let it escape from me. Antonio captain. Um, yeah, I might be captaining Antonio. We'll see what happens. I will. I think I will change it maybe to tomorrow. I could switch it back to the Ronaldo captaincy. But I still think there's great potential for Antonio to attack the Southampton side. So I think captaincies are quite reasonable across the board. To be honest, Salah. Even if you have Kane in your team, if you have Antonio, I think it actually makes sense. Carver, Lewin, I've heard that as a bit of a differential, but I feel like he is, for me, he's not really captaincy material because I think he's not that high variance as a player. Like he's very stable, one goal a game. Why not Salah? I think Leeds defend quite well at home. And that's what I'm slightly worried with, basically. Lukaku captain makes plenty of sense. I just don't have Lukaku in my team right now because, I mean, especially since I'm wildcarding, I feel like, for the future game weeks, I want to have Ronaldo at the very least, right? So, yeah, if you have Lukaku in your team, absolutely makes sense as a captain. I think he might actually be the best captaincy shout with all the kind of issues that a lot of squads are dealing with. I actually have a lot of money in the bank right now, guys, so you can see I have 1.0 in the bank. I'm basically playing around with, just slotting Greenwood into my team because if I put Greenwood in my team, then I still have 0.3 million to get into to maybe get out of Benrahma and maybe go to Jota. And at the same time, if I'm not happy with Greenwood, I feel like I can downsize him and maybe change the team around slightly as we head into the Chelsea kind of fixtures, right? But that's pretty much how things are going to be. What do you guys think about Jota and Greenwood and Torres yourselves? Like, are you guys worried about Torres starting, given the fact that he's played 3 games for Spain? Are you guys interested in... The thing that's interesting with me about Torres is I think if we look at, let's say, the Man City kind of team lineup the last time they played, I think that even if Kevin De Bruyne comes back, he could play in the... Ooh, sorry, not this game, sorry. But if we look at, for example, the Arsenal game, let's imagine, right, that we kind of see the same similar team being played. I think that we actually have a potential for, let's say, Kevin De Bruyne to play in Bernardo Silva's position. We still don't exactly know what exactly is going on with the Brazilian players because, for example, if you guys saw the kind of submitted lineup for Manchester United, Fred was actually removed. So I think it's come down to the individual clubs themselves to make these decisions. And we could really see Ederson go out. Right now, I still have Steele, as a 4.0 in my team because I could see a possibility for me to open up 3 Man City players in the future. Probably not. I might still punt Carson in the end. I would kind of just like to see whether there's kind of team news about that. Erectile Dysfunction asks, will Calvert-Lewin start? And I think the answer is yes. I think so. In terms of press conferences, a lot of people were confused about Rafa Benitez's quotes, and I think he was more speaking in the past tense about what Calvert-Lewin had to deal with in terms of game weeks 1 to 3 and him playing on an injury. Is Brandon Williams nailed? I wouldn't say he's nailed, but I think given the fact that he played versus Leicester, I think we can see him continually starting, and I think that's pretty much why they loaned him. I wouldn't say he's nailed though because I don't know exactly what is going on in Daniel Farke's head, and ultimately we've only seen him play once. Bruno, Son, and Wilson to Lukaku, Jota, and who was 6.4 in the bank. I mean, I think with 6.4 in the bank, you're probably wanting to go. I would also say it probably depends whether you have another West Ham midfielder. Maybe Traore does make sense, to be honest, since you can't go for Rafinha. Best midfield under 6.5 mil. I think, I mean, I'm still of the liking of Ben Rama, but I feel like the boat to jump up in Rama is you can get off that boat now, and maybe Traore could be that kind of pivot where you kind of have him as a interesting set and forget option, to be honest, for the next few game weeks. Greenwood looked good, but I don't know if he'll play with Ronaldo now. So I think, yeah, I mean, we'll probably expecting Greenwood to actually play tomorrow on the right wing, and maybe you actually think he'll have a diminished performance. Salah captain now to be safe. I think, yeah, the Salah captaincy is probably the most safe one. It's going to have the highest effective ownership. I think I might have a little bit of a differential captain. I'm not sure if it's going to be Antonio for me, but it'll probably be Ronaldo, to be honest. Christensen or Rudiger. I'm personally going for Christensen if I go for Greenwood. If I'm not going for Greenwood, I am going to go Rudiger and Torres. Do you captain Ronaldo for Fornals? I think definitely Ronaldo over Fornals. What do you think about Tierney for Christensen and ship out Shaw? I wouldn't change Tierney for Christensen. Not at all. I think, Chelsea still have decent defensive fixtures. And the thing is, you want to go back into Chelsea anyway, so it doesn't really make sense to ship out a Chelsea defender just to get one back in. I think it's even reasonable to have two Chelsea defenders by the time you hit game week 7. And I think, yes, you ship out Shaw for James, ideally in that scenario. Or maybe at that time, we see Shaw as a potential replacement for someone like Trent. Really depends. But I still think Trent is the most set and forget option. James is the most interesting kind of second fullback, I would say, in the league. Just because I think he gets to attack a lot more and be a lot more effective with his attacks when he plays with Chelsea. With Shaw, I would say there's somewhat diminished returns, but I know a lot of people are looking at Ronaldo and saying, this guy can finish most of Shaw's chances, and that's what was missing last season. So maybe that could be the case. But I would also say, Cavani is a very great header of the ball. And Shaw, I think, was still struggling to get like really, really, really solid returns with Cavani inside. Obviously, there's a little bit of a difference in level between Ronaldo and Cavani. I'm not denying that. But that is one thing to consider. Will Tierney start? I think so. When you look at the Arsenal injury news, I don't think he was listed as someone who was a concern or a doubt, right? Let's have a look. Better captain Salah or Bruno, can't go for Ronaldo. I think so. I still think you can go for Ronaldo though. I think I'm quite confident in Ronaldo starting personally. I'm ready to take the L on that, guys, for you. My wild card is honestly the best you've seen on YouTube. Thank you, Jerome. I'm not sure if it is, to be honest. So, Jerome, do you actually prefer Greenwood or Torres? Tuchel confirmed that. Oh my God, is Christensen injured? Seriously, is that true? I didn't know that. Can you please send me a source on that? Just on messages. I think you have to put Salah on this team for sure. A little bit too thin in the midfield, right? I'm a bit confused. Like, you can spend a lot more money with this team. One of the tricky things is how do you get into Chelsea quickly? So if you say 3 transfers, I guess you move out Shaw, you move out one of the defenders. Definitely can upgrade. I mean, you can go for Salah and also maybe upgrade Rama for all right, let's see. Ronaldo captain or Bruno? I mean, I'd be surprised if you had if you had both, right? I would say Ronaldo captain or Bruno captain, depending on who you have. But I think Salah is the safer captaincy. I still think I'm confident that Ronaldo will start. Because Cavani is not playing, right? So Cavani's not in the lineup. Fred is not playing, so that means we're going to see probably Pogba and Matic in the midfield, in my opinion. And then let's try to kind of fill in the gaps, right? So you have kind of Bruno as a cam. You have maybe Greenwood as a right winger. You have Sancho as a left winger. And you're looking for a striker. And I really don't think you're going to put Martial in that team. Like, if Martial starts tomorrow over Ronaldo, I don't know what to say about Ole. I'm gonna have to rethink it myself. Seth Ludwig. The thing is, I haven't seen the news on Christensen though. Can you find me the press conference quote? Because I didn't see any mention of Christensen being an issue. No Salah and Son a doubt. That's one move, but I want to get rid of Ings. I also have Simicast, but one Jota. ADZ, honestly, I think you're staring at a wild card in my opinion. Or you have to take several hits. That's another solution. Should you buy Reese James on a wild card? I definitely don't think so. I think Reese James is an option you can easily pivot from a 5.5, right? If you have Shaw or someone like that, you can easily move away from Shaw and go into Reese James easily, or you can even go for Christensen. To be honest, but the thing is, someone is saying that. All right, let's have a look at this team very briefly. Honestly, I wouldn't improve much on this team. I think it's solid. I need to kind of know what your bench is though, because I don't think you want to have Livramento as a starter. So in my opinion, I think if you can upgrade Livramento and if it means kind of downgrading Shaw, basically, if let's say you go for like Marcel and Christensen, if Christensen's fit, then I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm gonna read some of the. I'm gonna see Mikhail's team here. I quite like this team, to be honest, but I do think that Mount, it's a tricky one because I know you're targeting the Aston Villa fixture, but you're still dealing with two weeks that are going to be tough, right? Pookie's an interesting shout. That's a big differential there for sure. And I like, to be honest, the rest of your team. Of course, you have issues with Son. I guess this is not a wild card, obviously. That's my bad. So let's hope Son gets back fit and healthy soon. But I think, yeah, the team that you're actually lining up with is probably set for a really good game week 4, to be quite honest. Harry, should I have wildcard that I held off? Thinking of selling Bruno next week and getting Jota in. Honestly, I think you can hold off the wildcard because I think your team's completely playable in game week 4. So yeah, definitely hold off on that. I'm going to try respond. All right, what would I do here? Please help. You probably want to adjust. I think you change Son for Salah, and that's pretty much it, in my opinion, right? And you try to maybe change Ings into someone else. The issue, of course, is you can't go straight into Dominic Calvert-Lewin. So maybe it's a tough one, right? Because basically we're staring at Fernandes being a kind of somewhat short-term issue. The question would be, whether you want to keep Mahrez in your team. It seems like Mahrez will actually benefit from Gabriel Jesus maybe not playing. We'll have to kind of see the submitted lineup for Man City, I think, and kind of assess on that. But I would say probably try to get rid of Son, because basically Son is going to have 2 bad fixtures in a row right now, right? He might have limited minutes in the next game because probably they need to rest him, and then he has to play Chelsea. So I think he's a more immediate concern than someone like Fernandes, who actually has a good game week 4, or Mahrez, who has a good game week 4 potentially. The only other issue is maybe Ings. So I would consider maybe either you hold off on Ings or you go -4 to change Fernandes and Ings now if you want. I'm going to start responding to Twitter just a sec, just so I can kind of look at chat for a bit. Why not Torres? I think the only concern with Torres is with KDB coming back. We might see a different formation from Pep Guardiola. If you're talking about why I don't have Torres in my team, I do actually have Torres in my team right now. I'm actually just constantly kind of deliberating between both Greenwood and Torres myself. Best wildcard draft. I mean, the best wildcard draft is what you personally think is the best wildcard draft. I've personally posted a team selection on YouTube. If you guys want to have a look at that. But it's up to you. Someone mistook Christensen with Christian Pulisic. Yeah, exactly. Christian Pulisic is the one who's injured, guys, not Christensen. I didn't read anything about Christensen. I didn't see it. I didn't hear it myself in the press conference. Really good shout there, actually. How did my exams go? They were all right, actually, so I'm kind of hoping the results were fine. Let's have a look at Sam's team, because he did message me. Jota plus Semedo for Son, plus Simicast worth it then. I will have enough money in the bank to move on Tony next week. Yeah, if you want to. I mean, personally, I think your defense is so strong, I don't really know if you want to spend that much money on defense. Because the way I see it is you have 4 very good starting defenders, and then now you're going to add another kind of 5.0, 4.9 defender, which means that the rest of the space to kind of upgrade your team is very limited. I would rather you probably just go for Marcel or Cody and call it a day, to be honest, because ideally, I think the highest scoring formations naturally are usually 3 at the back formations, and in the medium or long term, you probably want to be moving away from them. There are some game weeks, of course, where it makes a lot of sense to have good defenders. But I think right now, given the amount of plentiful forwards that we have at good budget prices and also at a premium price, means that moving towards 3 forwards makes the most sense in the medium term. What's my plan for Rafinha? So yeah, Christopher, I think my plan for Rafinha is mostly to shift away from, regardless of whether I go for Greenwood, right? So if I go for Greenwood now, I still have 0.3 million in the bank to go. Let's say I can either drop one of, if let's say I'm very unimpressed by Jota or Greenwood, or I feel like, let's say, Greenwood's his position is affected by Ronaldo too much, or if I think I don't know, let's say Jota gets a miracle injury, then I'll move either of them for Rafinha. But I think I'm tempted by kind of moving, let's say, Benrahma into Rafinha, because yes, whilst the fixtures are kind of average here, I would say during this patch for West Ham, I would just say that simply put, Rafinha has much better fixtures than Benrahma, and I think at that price point, I would have benefited a little bit from the kind of cash out of Benrahma, and hopefully it would make sense as a move. How much am I betting on Ronaldo starting tomorrow? Well, I'm definitely not betting on anything, but I do think he'll start probably, I would say 85% sure. I think when you look at the lineup submitted, you can clearly see that Cavani's not there. Fred is not there. I think the kind of forward positions are not contested that much, because I can't imagine Ole starting Martial, to be honest. If he does, I don't know what to say. That will be painful. But yeah. Did you go -4 or you had 2 transfers this week? No, Awad, I'm on a wild card right now. Let me kind of scroll back up in chat, guys, so I make sure that I didn't miss any messages. Ronaldo will probably play second half. He won't play full 90 minutes. What makes Ronaldo not capable of playing 90 minutes? This is honestly one of the fittest players we've ever seen, despite his age. Martial starts. Rio, you're hurting me right now. You're hurting me, bro. This is my final draft. Not 100%. I might change it tomorrow morning if there are any kind of additional team news that I can maybe rely on. Thoughts on Alba? I think he's a big differential shout. So I think if you're maybe trying to catch up, it could be that huge play where suddenly you find yourself within the ranks. But the issue with Alba, in my opinion, is that there are times where he plays left wing for the team, and there are times when Lacazette is actually playing striker. And you could see last season, even in the good games that Arsenal were playing, Lacazette was the one scoring the goals. And that's basically my concern with Aubameyang. If you're going for a Brighton defender, who will you pick? I have Duffy, but I'm not. I think you go for Duffy just because of price reasons, right? You don't really want to spend too much money on Brighton defense because, what we saw last season is that honestly the aerial threats were huge. Dunk was adequately priced at 5.0, or correctly priced at 5.0 rather. Given the fact that he was an aerial threat, and with Lamptey not playing a consistent role last season, we just saw someone who's a centre back as a good option, because it's not like their fullbacks get that attacking unless we see Lamptey. Someone says they're looking to break the 50 points barrier. Absolutely hope so. I hope that works out for you. Traore or Sarr? That's a tough one, but I think just simply due to the fact that Watford struggle to kind of break down teams unless they're on the counter and kind of blow teams by pace, which is exactly what happened versus Aston Villa. I think Aston Villa just wasn't ready as a team to kind of cope with what Watford brought to the table. I don't think Watford have a very developed or nuanced game at all. I think they are kind of relying on, honestly, players to kind of carry the ball down the line and either take a pot shot and kind of collect a rebound, or go for a kind of half-measured cross, to be honest, or half-hearted rather. I think their attacking game is somewhat lacking, and I feel like Wolves have given me a lot more confidence. And I wouldn't say Adama's a clinical finisher, absolutely not. But the fact that he's getting more chances is probably a good enough reason to say, why not punt on Adama Traore. When you're comparing to Rafinha, though, I would say Rafinha is definitely a better option. Thoughts on Sa and goal? Really good fixtures and defensive numbers. I like Sa and goal, but the way I see it, right, is is Brighton are also one of the top leading teams in defensive stats. Like, I don't see what the reason is to move away from Sanchez. And simply put, you have the option to go for Wolves defenders at 4.5. So when you're looking at budget cuts for your team, it doesn't really make sense to go for Salah, in my personal opinion. That's just how I feel. Dyer or Ayling for this week. Dyer good fixture, but Ayling could rotate with 5.5s when they have a bad fixture. Thoughts? I agree with that, to be honest. I'm actually quite tempted by White, to be honest, who's actually cheaper than both. I don't know if you would agree with me, but I think if you're just looking at a 4.4 option to just rotate in when there are bad games, I mean, Arsenal have a good run of fixtures, so why not just have White sitting in your bench and save yourself a little bit of money as well. Thought about Marcel for a long time. Yeah, I mean, I thought about Marcel because I actually watched him play a couple games. Yes, he doesn't deliver the best crosses in the world, but he's trying to produce a lot of chances, and I think, I mean, it's like the whole kind of quote where it's like even a broken clock can tell the time like correctly once in a day. And for example, when you compare to Cody, he's not really getting many chances to score, right? It's Saiss who's that more of an aerial threat. So that's just kind of feel about that. I know Cody ironically scored an international goal lately, but you know what I mean. He said Christensen arrived with crutches. I don't think so. Christensen was in training, by the way, so definitely not. If you're going for a Brighton defender, who will you pick? Yeah, so I think I said Duffy. You currently have Shaw, Rudiger, and Trent in your defense as a back three, but you don't have DCL up top. Do you think it's worth downgrading Rudiger and Shaw to Christensen and Marcel to upgrade Greenwood to DCL? I think if you have to take a hit to do that, it's not worth it, because for me, your defense is very elite right now. Is it a wild card that you're on? Who's Marcel? Do you mean Marcel from Wolves, the left back, or do you mean someone else? Traore or Trincao? I still think Traore is a better option than Trincao, if I have to be completely honest. That guy missed the start. Anything important you missed? Not really, to be honest, but I have been going through several questions, so feel free to drop a question in. You swapped out Mount for Gray instead before his price goes up. Yeah, that makes sense. Let's actually have a look at some of the price rises, to be honest, together. That would be quite interesting. But actually, sorry, going back to the Man City formation, what I was trying to say was that basically Kevin De Bruyne can play in Bernardo Silva's position over here. And if Gabriel Jesus is not playing, then Mahrez can come in. The issue, of course, is Sterling and Foden can come into the equation. That's super annoying to deal with as a Torres owner. But we know naturally, I think that Torres can kind of become actually a long-term option in the team. But there's also the potential that he kind of gets fizzled out, right? If some other players find form and suddenly Pep rates those players instead. We know Pep has the ability to kind of move in between players and kind of like players for moments in time, and suddenly he's completely off a player. So that is the slight worry there. Whereas, with Greenwood, I think the question is, can he consistently deliver from a right wing position? And maybe the answer is no. So we'll have to kind of find out. But I think the fact that you can actually so easily downgrade from these midfielders means that it's still kind of worth it, given the fact that they have lovely fixtures. So yeah, that's kind of how I feel about that. I'm going to respond to Twitter in a second. Adama and Semedo or Torres and Marcel. I'd prefer Torres and Marcel because at least you have a little bit of flexibility there. And I really don't rate Semedo too much. Thoughts on Bamford over DCL? I think there's no issues with that. Obviously, Bamford has one tough fixture right now. Is it Pookie time? They are playing Arsenal for sure, but I really don't value Norwich very much. I don't think, or Norwich rather, but I don't think they're attacking very well. Hi from New Zealand. Hey, Daniel Pedance or Damari Gray? I think Gray. I think Gray is a much more clinical finisher, in my opinion. I know we don't have much sample size on Gray, but to be honest, I have enough sample size to say that Pedance, on the contrary, is not a good finisher. We saw him last season, and he was extremely wasteful. Extremely wasteful. Diaz or Gray or Williams and Jota? I kind of like Williams and Jota. But if you're starting Williams, then no. I mean, I guess you have to go for Diaz or Gray then, and Gray in that sense. It really depends on what formation you're running as well. You've got Ronaldo right now, but you're thinking bring Lukaku for Gameweek 7 and onwards and get rid of Ronaldo. I think that's what everyone is trying to do actually right now, to be honest. Kane is Palace, Chelsea, and Arsenal. Lukaku is Villa, Tottenham, City. So who's going to pick up points more? I think Kane. So that was my thinking. I think Kane. Yeah, Kane has fantastic fixtures in a sense. The issue, of course, is Son. Son being injured does take a lot out of that. And I think when you actually look at the fixture of Chelsea versus Tottenham, I would say Tottenham, I mean, are going to struggle versus Chelsea. I think Chelsea should quite comfortably win that game. You weren't going to wildcard as the team looks set with 2 transfers. The plan was Ronaldo and Jota for Bruno and Ings, but now we have the Rafinha and Son issue. I can take a -4 and fix my team. I think so. I think Rafinha is not a long-term issue, so you don't really need to fix him. Son might be a bit of a worry, right? Because he basically has 2 back-to-back bad, fixtures. I can have a look at Twitter in a second. Morning, Fran, thanks for the reply on my 3 PM wildcard. Yet to pull the trigger yet. Yeah, I mean, it's totally up to you, so kind of hold on to that. Is a -8 worth it, or wildcard makes more sense? I mean, I think it really depends on how risk averse you are or risk prone you are. If you think there's more value in a subsequent wildcard or a later wildcard, then go for that. But I think I don't think a -8 is usually worth it. Honestly, last season when I had like a rather average finish, like a lot of the mistakes I made were just constantly knee jerking to players, right? So I don't think it's necessarily beneficial. 3 goals and 2 assists for Podence last season, exactly. Arsenal's got its backline back. White and Saka at good value. I don't think Saka is good value. I think White is good value, though. I agree with you on that, Zubin. My thoughts on Kilman from Wolves. I think he's pretty much comparable to Cody, maybe slightly better than Cody in terms of attacking. I am slightly worried about the potential that William Bolly could come back into the team, but I'm not exactly sure how Bruno Lage basically values Bolly as a player, and also maybe Bolly has really diminished as a player as well, so I don't really know exactly. Kane or Salah for captain. I think Kane might be a nice captaincy shout, to be honest. He always seems to perform extremely well versus Crystal Palace. Is Semedo worth it? Personally, I would say no. Some people will disagree, but all I have to say is just have a look at Semedo's stats when he played in Barcelona all that time, and simply put, he just really never impressed for me. So Jota's about to hit a price rise, guys, and Torres is about to hit a price rise as well, potentially. Let's see exactly what happens in that situation. That would really benefit me and my team. I might even get the kind of price benefit from Torres and maybe just cash out of Torres to go into Greenwood tomorrow. We'll see exactly what happens with that situation. How do you guys rate between Torres and Greenwood? Who would you pick between the both of them? Do you think Pogba is a good differential? Honestly, no, because basically the issue right now is Man United's midfield is very thin, and I think that means Pogba plays a bit deeper for now. So the issue is, I think in the short term, Pogba is not a good differential until he kind of starts to play more on the left wing, which I think is not going to happen for now because McTominay still seems to be injured, right? I'm not exactly sure what's happening. Can Christensen start? Absolutely. Jimenez or DCL, you're on a wild card. I would probably go for DCL. He seems like a much safer option. He is clearly a talismanic option right now, and Everton have shown already within the first three games in the season that they're consistently building chances for DCL rather. Whereas with Jimenez, I've actually seen him play a little bit further from goal than I like. He's all of his shots are actually quite far away from goal, which is not what I really like to see from a striker, right? You choose Greenwood. Most people are going for Greenwood. Let's actually make a poll on that one, guys. Actually, let's do Greenwood, Torres, or Jota. Greenwood, Torres. I would actually really like to know your opinions, guys, on that. Torres as a striker is so good, man. Torres over Greenwood for me. I love Greenwood, but don't have enough money to buy him now. I went Lukaku captain. That's completely fair, Jay, and I think that makes a lot of sense. So it seems like most people prefer Jota a lot. That's nice to see, and I think it makes sense, right? Because with Firmino's injury, I mean, he's so valuable. Torres can keep some money in the bank for future transfers. All right, let's say I keep Torres in my team, guys. Who do you think I should upgrade in my team right now? I could upgrade Christensen. I don't really want to spend the full 1.0 in the bank because I really want to go into Rafinha from Benrahma. But I also note the possibility that I could be extremely unimpressed with maybe Torres if he doesn't play, and then I can move on from him potentially. But that would hurt my feelings quite a bit if Torres doesn't play. That's the one issue I have with Torres. Like, does Pep rest him? Varane or Shaw? I would probably say Shaw ultimately. I know Varane got an assist last match, but yeah, get Jota and Torres, problem solved. I mean, that's what I have right now. What if you have all three? I think the issue with having all three is that you might deal with some sort of kind of rotation issues, right? Because let's say when Firmino comes back a little bit more, let's say Greenwood is dealing with more competition with Rashford and Sancho, and let's say maybe KDB, or Sterling have a run at the false nine position. What do we do in that situation, right? I mean, obviously that would be the worst possible, but I think like you want to have some I think you'd rather have a midfield that is more stacked with nailed players. Even with Benrahma, we could maybe see rotation with Vlasic coming in for West Ham, Christensen to Aspie or Diaz. But the thing is, Diaz has rough games, right? And the thing is, you want to have Christensen by game week 7, and if anything, you want to have Reese James more. So that for me is a bit short-term thinking. In terms of Azpilicueta, I think it's just a waste of money to have Azpilicueta at 6.0 when you can have Christensen at 5.0. Sanchez to 5.0 keeper. I can definitely do that. I mean, the same thing with Shaw. I mean, Shaw is a possibility, but like let's say, I mean, you have to have some sort of long-term thinking involved, right? Because obviously Shaw can be a good option really until, let's say, maybe after the Everton game, I would say. Because this kind of run of fixtures between 8 and 11 is pretty disgusting, if we're going to be honest. But then the thing is, I would have to lose the transfer on Benrahma to Rafinha. So that leaves me. So I have to go Christensen because I want to basically drop Ronaldo to go Lukaku, have a little bit of money to go for Marcel to Reece James, basically. And that's my genuine plan because so this is roughly the plan, right? By game week 7, I should be playing a team that looks like this. Something like this, right? With maybe 1 or 2 upgrades or slight different changes. Now, of course, you're looking at this team now and you're probably going to say that I can get Rudiger, but obviously the issue is kind of moving out of Ronaldo first. And I imagine, yeah, there'll be some issues there. But yeah, that's pretty much what I'm dealing with right now. But I'll think about it tomorrow morning and post an update. Is KDB back? I believe so. He's been in training for a while. Pulisic had crutches, not Christensen. Yep, that's the case. I can go with Shaw this week and move him to Pereira, Reece James. I mean, I could, but what's the point of going for Reece James versus Tottenham, right? I think, even though I would say Chelsea have a nice fixture versus Tottenham, if I'm being honest, it's still not the best game to have James in, because it's not like he's going to bring in a lot of attacking potential. I think Tottenham will pretty much park the bus that game, and it'll be tough. It'll not be kind of as an open game as Reece James got to play versus Arsenal. In terms of Pereira, he's an interesting option for sure, but as I said, it's about looking at your free transfers and planning ahead and thinking about stuff like that. You can't just have a team that's just set and forget for game week 4 and not think about, okay, what is this team going to look like in game week 7? And yeah, honestly, there's 200 people here, so this is actually kind of a record for us in terms of a live stream. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you could drop a like as well, that would be really, really appreciated. Thank you guys as well for joining as well. It's awesome to kind of see you guys, especially after quite a long break, in my opinion. Hopefully, the international break was good for you guys too. Williams to Cody or Sanchez to Sa. I really think Williams to Cody makes sense because I still think the Brighton defense is very solid. Why would you remove Wolves defender by game week 7? I mean, if you just look at my team, there's no one else I would be removing, right? I'm probably not going to drop Trent. And ultimately, when I hit past game week 7, even though the Newcastle game is arguably a nice one, I just don't have right now the money in the side. Maybe I actually could at that time maybe drop Williams at that point and go for Reece James with the money that I get from Lukaku and maybe Rafinha saved up, but we'll have a look at that. Thank you, Leonardo. Reese will be on corners. I agree with that, but it doesn't mean, I mean, just because you're on corners doesn't mean you're guaranteed an assist versus Tottenham, right? I'm not sure why that makes Reece James a good pick by game week 6. He also plays Man City after that. International break was amazing as Dane. Yeah, I mean, I think you guys are on 18 points, which is crazy. That's really nice. Wilson replacement this week. I think at that price point, you're probably just talking about Jimenez, right? Unless you have additional money. Benrahma out, Raf in. I mean, that's what I'm going to do. But I'm not going to do Benrahma out now because Rafinha is playing versus Liverpool and might not even play as well in game week 4. You would def want Reece James over... Yeah, but what's the point of having Reece James over Christensen when I can have both of them? Would you drop Jota when Firmino's fit? Potentially. I'll have to exactly see what the situation is because... But I think I likely will. Will I drop Ronaldo regardless? Probably yes. You know, I think you have to kind of play it logically as well. It's not like just because... I know Ronaldo is arguably a fixture-proof player, but it doesn't mean that he's going to destroy top teams, right? the Man United midfield is a weak team. They're going to struggle, I think. Jose Sa or Pickford, I would probably say Jose Sa. Fornals is a nice pick, for sure. Marcel and Greenwood or Torres and Semedo. I have no rotation, though. I mean, I don't have rotation, but I don't think that's an issue because I think having a deep bench was something I tested last year and trialed, and honestly, I can say it's just not worthwhile having a deep bench. You can go from Sanchez to Sa with that money. But as I argued, I said I don't want to double up on a Wolves defender. I actually like the Brighton defense. I kind of like having a diversified defense. I don't really like doubling up on in what in my opinion would be a team that's outside of the top four on a defensive level. So that's just how I feel about that. Should you buy Varane? Probably not. I would still say Shaw makes sense a little bit more. Would the wildcard from Game Week 4 give result in 2 free transfers next week? No, it would just give you 1 free transfer. Are you sure about my Game Week 4 captain? I think I'm likely going to stick with Ronaldo as a captain. What are you guys going to pick as captains? Jota actually won that poll as well. Maybe I'll run a captaincy poll now as well in a few minutes, just to kind of gauge your opinion on things. I'm going to look at Twitter for a second, but I'll respond to you guys in a few minutes. Is your wildcard creating problems? I think it looks like you're booking in 3 transfers already. Jota, Torres, and Benny. Maybe pick 2 of those 3 and then go for someone else more nailed. But the issue is that a lot of the players in the league who aren't... I mean, I don't think it's not necessarily creating issues because I have a clear logical plan, I think, that sends me to Game Week 7. Because I think Torres runs into issues around Game Week 6. I agree with that. Benrahma, I don't think is... I wouldn't say Benrahma is really rotation prone because I think Vlasic is less of a cam. He's more of a left winger. Or rather, just a winger in general. So it's a tough one there. But I test Benrahma before I move into Rafinha. But that definitely is a transfer that I'm locking in. I'm definitely locking in the Ronaldo transfer, and then I'm also having a defensive transfer as well, probably a double transfer. And I still feel like Game Week 7 is going to be Game Week 6 is going to be the tough game that I have to live with Ferran Torres. So I do have to live with that. You're right. In terms of Jota, I think even coming off as a substitute, I'm still happy with that in general. And yeah, I mean, that's just pretty much how I feel about that. Because I still think if let's say for me, I think Klopp as well is happy to start Jota when he can. I think he seems to prefer, let's say, Firmino in the bigger fixture. So maybe let's say Firmino plays Man City. But I can still see like Jota hauling all the way to the Watford game, really. And maybe I'll have to think about, dropping him then. In terms of Torres, yes, I agree that this is a bit of a tricky situation. But I think he could haul very heavily versus Southampton at home. And I feel like having him in my team is kind of worth it in terms of a stopgap. I take your point, though. It does seem like I'm booking in transfers. But I feel like I'm kind of just theorizing about what the best transfer is right now, but I'm happy to kind of be flexible about it in general if I have to. Yeah, Vlasic, I agree. Yeah, he is. I've seen him play, interchangeably on wings, but it seems like I think Moyes really loves what he has in Fornals, and Fornals seems to be honestly an engine and a bit of a tank, so it's interesting there. Jimenez / Sarr or Antonio / Adama. I would definitely go for Antonio. I'd probably go for... I guess if you're trying to squeeze in money, then I guess you probably have to go Antonio and Sarr, right, in that case. Jota -4 or Torres. I think you just keep Torres. Would you rather bench Benrahma or Cancelo? I'd probably bench Cancelo, to be honest. That sounds tough. Trade Torres for Greenwood. Are you saying that I should do that, Jerome? Yeah, that's fair enough. Just yeah, no, I agree. I agree with that, John, to be honest. But I think I'm also happy to maybe also take a step back with the Chelsea transfer. Like it could happen a week later if that makes sense. Yeah. Is Arteta nailed, or can there be... Wait, what? Arteta? I mean, I think Arteta seems to be... You probably have to transfer Arteta out after... let's see what fixture. So we said Arteta had... Not Arteta, sorry. But let's look at, one of Arteta's favorite players right here. So Arteta probably... I think Arteta's nailed until after the Burnley game. He probably lasts until the Tottenham game, and then maybe we have to transfer Arteta out after then. Do you know what I mean? I think that's a good time to transfer Arteta out. Why did you take Carson out? Any news about him? Yeah, that's actually a good point. I need to kind of find out what the Man City submitted lineup is. Son and Ings for Jota and Jimenez. I think that's very reasonable, Jerome. Zubin. Also, instead of going for a 6-man mid, should I move funds to a 6-man Diaz and going for a back four? I like Diaz long term, but honestly, I think this is one of the worst runs possible to kind of get Diaz, right? I really think Chelsea and Liverpool can score versus Man City. I think like Chelsea is always a low scoring game versus Man City, but I think Chelsea has honestly gotten the better than in recent times. Liverpool, that's always a high scoring game in my opinion. So I would probably avoid Diaz for now. And we know Vardy has... The Vardy party does always seem to kind of run against Man City. Abdul Rahman says, hi Fran, when are you planning to get rid of DCL? It depends, right? Because DCL, fixture-wise, seems, bar the Man United fixture, like we could really carry him all the way into pretty much game week 10. Arteta out. Is Steele starting over Sanchez, Fran? No, he's not. I just have Steele just in case Sanchez is injured. But we'll see as well exactly what happens with some of the news. Marcel and Greenwood or Semedo and Torres. Probably Marcel and Greenwood, to be honest. So Arteta for Conte. I think Arsenal would love to have Conte, but I don't know if Conte would love to have Arsenal. That's probably a better question. What are my Watford Wolves predictions? I think it could be a 1-0 game, maybe to Wolves. Scott Carson. Actually, I do need to check on the news on that, to be honest, for Scott Carson. I'm going to check Man United for a quick second. Do Man United not submit their kind of lineup, though? I think they do, don't they? Doesn't seem like it. Let's have a look at what if the Reddit has any kind of updated information, to be honest, that could be helpful for us. Because I think we saw the news that Cavani was missing from the submitted team and Fred as well. But it doesn't seem like we have any additional news on City. People are saying that Ronaldo is expected to line up for United, which I think is very fair. I think it makes sense. No Cavani in United squad. So this is the source. It says Wan-Bissaka, Dalot. So no Cavani. We probably won't have a source for Man City, so maybe I will stick with the Carson thing. Ronaldo is... Oof, I've missed a few messages. Apologies about that. Could you please explain the free hit? Yeah, I can explain the free hit. So the idea of the free hit is that you have one team, right? You have one team right now. This is your kind of permanent team. What happens when you free hit is effectively this. Let's say we head into... Maybe we'll just go further down the calendar. I wonder if they will show blank game weeks. I don't think they do, right? No, they don't show blank game weeks. But basically what happens is in certain points in the season, maybe let's say you just for one week, some players in your team aren't going to play in that week, and you feel like, okay, I need to have a completely different team this week. Or maybe there's a blank game week, which is something that actually happens in FPL. A blank game week is basically where not all 10 matches are going to be played. There's also something called a double game week as well, which I can explain to you if you don't know what that is. But effectively, a double game week is just a game week where there are more than 10 matches, basically. But sometimes there are game weeks where you have maybe like 5 or 6 matches due to cup fixtures kind of changing the scheduling of the Premier League. And what happens is you might want to do something like a free hit. And the free hit is basically you creating a 100 million team. So based on the current prices, and that team would only exist for 1 week. and that team is temporary. So you wouldn't have any of the transfers you book in with that aren't a part of the free hit wouldn't count for that week. And after the free hit, you will return back to the usual structure where you get one free transfer. So it's basically just a 1 week stopgap of a temporary team where you might want to maximize some points for that week by going for a different XI. And then the next week, kind of, let's say if you took a free hit on game week 14, right? Your game week 15 team would be your game week 13 team plus one free transfer. Traore or Benrahma, I'd probably say that's a tough one. I'd probably say Benrahma still. Rudiger or Christensen? I prefer Rudiger. But I think if you want to budget down like I do, to be honest, I think Christensen makes sense. Like for me, I would rather Christensen and Reese James, right, as a pairing. Carson could play because yes, Zach Steffen is actually in the United States. He's quarantining. Pep Guardiola confirmed that in the press conference today. Right, sorry. Let me actually fix that kind of punt as well. Oh, look at Sam's team too. I think I'll respond to Sam's team. We'll respond to some Twitter really quickly. So FPL Luke's team is right over here. Really solid team, to be honest. I've really no complaints. Mostly because this team is the exact team that I had, so suggested for the wild card. So yeah, I love it. You're going to wild card game week 8. Lukaku and Rafinha for Salah, and DCL in game week 7 as well. And then Salah comes back in with a wild card. Right. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think this team is very solid for the next game week. Maybe Fernandes. There's a question mark there. I don't know what exactly your plans are with Fernandes, but I think I would also be a bit scared of... I guess you're playing White for this week only, and then you bring back Tony. I do think Brentford have some tough fixtures coming up, though, so maybe I guess you play around with Tony and Fernandes, I guess. But yeah, that guy Rafinha comes in next week, and James puts Lukaku in game 7. Yep, that makes sense. Yep, very solid team. Happy with that. Saka has a bit of a differential. Not a huge fan of Saka, if I have to be completely honest. I'd probably still rate Traore over him, but that's just my personal opinion. I think they're similar in the sense that they actually probably won't get many attacking returns, but it's just looking at what Wolves attack, I'm a little bit more confident in them, to be honest. What do I do with transfers? I only got 0.3 in the bank, and what about for next week against Newcastle? I mean, yeah, then you can still move out of Benrahma, right? I think you're perfectly fine. You can still go for Reese James, and you can still go for Lukaku, because the money from Ronaldo to Lukaku will give you the money to go for Reese James likely, because you probably will have 0.1 in the bank, and the 1.1 will help you upgrade maybe Marcel potentially at that point in time. Saka punt against Noor, who knows what happens. No, I completely understand that. And to be honest, if Rafinha comes in anyways next week in your team, then I think it's happy days for you. Margiela, we're going for 3 for 3 with the 10 out of 10. It's too easy. All right. Shaw, Johnson, Gilmore. Yeah, I mean, I like this team. I think this is like the most template front line right now for all wild cards. Obviously, Lukaku might bite really hard on the Aston Villa game, and he could really hurt us. But I think if you're wildcarding, you take Ronaldo because 5 and 6 are so much nicer. Shaw, I think, is fantastic as well. I just find it slightly harder for getting out of or getting into the Chelsea defense, because I really do want to have 2 Chelsea defenders by game week 7. Rio has sent his team in once again. So this is the first non-Jota Torres team. So we have Greenwood instead, and we have Tierney as well, which is pretty interesting. I guess the general query would just be, I know Tierney is interesting, but then maybe I guess you only want to have 1 Chelsea defender. That's totally fine with you. I guess that's your prerogative. So that makes sense. And then also there's the option to move into Rafinha. So I think this team is solid. Sean's team here. By the way, Sean, I also saw that you're staying up as well. So thank you so much for joining the live stream. I'm not sure if you're still around, but I will say, this is probably not a wild card, right? So this is probably why we have this team here. How much is Højbjerg? Is he at 4.5? That's a weird pick to have, right? I think Højbjerg is a 4.5. Or I think it's a 5.0 actually. Yeah, he's 5.0. I guess we can't solve that issue until game week 7 anyway, so in the meantime, this is a solid team. I would say this is a solid team for game week 4 just because of how poor Newcastle is, but then I guess you do need to kind of plan quite aggressively. Because, you know, Reguilón starts to hit poor games. Cresswell has a tough game versus United. Rafinha starts to hit good games, that's true. Fernandes might, you know, start to drop off as a player, so you need to kind of think about adjusting that. Hives teams, hey mate, here's my team. Next week, Rafinha in for Duffy. Thoughts? Yep, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I really love this team. Looks good. Arun has a team here, or thoughts, and I was thinking backline of Christian, Marcel and TA instead. I think that could be the go-to backline. I just feel like the money that goes into Semedo can really just be another Wolves defender. I feel like if we just look at Semedo's stats, honestly, and I know Jordi Alba is like one of the best fullbacks that we've seen in the last 2 decades, but we know Semedo is an attacking fullback. You don't have him for defensive reasons. So I'm just quickly going to have a look at their stats very briefly. And yeah, I mean, ultimately, these are Semedo's attacking outputs for Barcelona. You know, 1 goal, 4 assists, 1 goal, 2 assists. Not very many minutes played, but this is for a team that I think regularly beats most of their opposition. Can play with a lot of open space because other players in the team take a lot of space. And I feel like Semedo just isn't a player who's that, you know, great in terms of his decision making when he actually gets into those advanced positions. So whilst I'm not saying Marcel is a fantastic player, the idea is that you have someone who's cheaper than Marcel, and you just probably hope that Wolves get clean sheets, and then by the off chance that Marcel or Semedo hauls, you can deal with that. But you know, when you have Semedo who is basically a premium of 0.4, I just don't think he's worth it. And then when you can look at Jordi Alba, who is someone who plays, you know, even in a 2,000-minute season, a lot more stronger returns. Ultimately, yeah, I mean, it's just not that comparable, I think. Best Wolves defender, I'm gonna say Marcel. I'm gonna put that out there. Not Carson. He'll lock you out of the third City spot. True, but I feel like this season, right, I'm only probably ever going to have one Man City midfielder and one Man City defender, because I think now we've entered a point in the game where you have Chelsea having a strong defense, you have Liverpool having a strong defense. So I can't see, for example, a template at one point last season was having a double Man City defense, right? I don't see that happening this year. In terms of the forward options, I think they're all rotatable. In terms of midfield options, I think it's either going to be me, you know, dropping Salah for some odd reason and going for KDB, which probably won't happen, and having Torres. So I don't really see how, like, let's say having Carson as a 4.0 keeper is going to really hurt me too much, unless you disagree on that. A Baxter and Semedo. I mean, the thing is, that's what happens whenever you move into a bigger team, right? You usually perform for a smaller team. A bigger team has eyes on you. They pick you up, and maybe you don't deliver, and you deal with criticism. And that's exactly what happens most of the time when people move into a bigger team. And the thing is, though, Barcelona does give you a lot of space to attack as an attacking fullback, and he was given the license to do that. He just is ultimately not a very good player when he's inside the box and having to make decisions. Sometimes when you reverse weaker defenses, he can exploit them, but I just think versus a parked bus, he does struggle. And ultimately, when we're saying that Wolves is playing versus weaker teams, that's what they're going to be dealing with, right? Unlocking defenses and things like that. My team right now looks like this. Still a lot of money in the bank, to be honest. Couple of decisions that I still have to make, such as, you know, between Torres and Greenwood. I'm kind of waiting for a Torres price rise tonight, and then maybe I'll hopefully get to move out of him potentially for Greenwood. The alternative is that I only pick one of Jota, Torres, and Greenwood, and I do something else that's crazy with my team, but I don't think that's going to happen. Is it smarter to avoid using wildcard in Game Week 7 and instead just save a transfer to bring in Lukaku for the DCL and Havertz for Bruno? I mean, I think it just depends on what your team is. It's a wildcard is always conditional. So for me, for example, like, I didn't really want to have Son in my team anymore, and I almost got it backed up because he got injured as well. But I just wanted to change my structure, and the only way I could really get away from that and move into a 3 forward structure was by wildcarding. 16 message requests. Yeah, I will try to get to them, guys, but there are a lot of message requests. All right, let's try to go through them very quickly. Starting from the top. Aman is for the back vial option 100%, but I would say, yeah, I mean honestly, it is a vial option for sure. Yeah, I would say 100% because that is a very solid back line, and Wolves have fantastic fixtures. Final wildcard team. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. That's Jota, right? Yeah, that's Jota. Antonio, Ronaldo, Carver, Lewin. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me. Obviously, you just deal with one bad week of Rafinha, and then you're actually pretty smooth sailing. Question, of course, is that, well, you don't have to do that book away from Rafinha, then I guess, you can quite easily still get to 3 Chelsea players, so no issues there. Shanjay's team. Is this a good wildcard team? I would say the top team looks very solid, to be honest, to me. No issues with that. Second team. You don't know if you should take a hit for Ronaldo or just wildcard. I think you can avoid the hit now. I still think Ronaldo starts, which is one of my concerns. But then, are we saying Ronaldo's going to have such a huge haul where Fernandes will have not a good haul at all? Probably not. So I think you can probably still live with not taking a hit, I would say. If anything, I'd like to kind of maybe move out of Ings, and that might cause you to take a hit. So I think that question can sort of be thrown back at you. Let's have a look at this team here. I'm not a fan of having Livermore starting, but I can kind of get it because you have Rafinha and Ayling in your team. That's fine. Yeah, I mean, once again, it's more like, I think if you're wildcarding, you want to have at least one Chelsea player in your team. That's my personal opinion. I feel like that means that you don't have so many kind of transfers that you have to book in advance, right? But otherwise, it's a strong team. Sam Matthew. Not sure that your mid is strong. I think your mid is very strong, to be honest. But if you have to start Sissoko, it's not worth it, right? I think even your defense could arguably be a bit weak, because the thing is, yes, Cody comes into this team, but I think Dean is probably not... For me, I think Dean isn't worth 5.4 this year. I think Everton is actually a solid defense, but Dean isn't attacking very much. So therefore, because he's not attacking that much, I don't think he's worth 5.4. So you might want to just kind of maybe downgrade Dean to someone else, and then maybe get to change the core of your team. But unfortunately, if you want to go Lukaku, Ronaldo, Salah, you have to kind of restrict yourself. Because for me, I mean, Trent should also be a set and forget option for most players. I mean, my general recommendation is to go template, you drop Lukaku. But if you want to go for Lukaku and you want to play around with Lukaku, then that's your prerogative. So you can stick with that if you want. You're thinking of bringing Lukaku for Gameweek 7 onwards, get rid of Ronaldo, then bring Kane when Chelsea's fixtures get back, then get Ronaldo back after. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Alonso right now, very interesting. Kilman's also very interesting. That's the first Kilman I've seen. I've seen Cody. I've seen Marcel, but that's the first Kilman. And honestly, I feel like Kilman and Cody are interchangeable, so no issues with this team. Very solid. Let's have a look at Thomas's team. You got 4.5 million in the bank. You can do Ings for Ronaldo, but not convinced Ronaldo will start. Tempted to do Ings Lukaku instead. Take the captain hold and switch Ronaldo next game week. Wildcard plan for Game Week 7. Thoughts on team in general? Cheers. Honestly, I think if you can actually do that, and you feel like your team is a bit fixture proof, then that makes sense, right? I think it's just, I would say, I think Rafinha is someone to think about as well. But the plan you have actually makes sense to me, so I'd be happy with that. I'm sorry, guys. There's so many Twitter requests. I'm just going to have to go back to chat for just a brief second. We're on 316 viewers. I've literally broken 200 and 300 for the first time tonight, so thank you guys so much as well. Thank you guys for the likes as well. Hope you guys have enjoyed the live stream so far, but I'm going to try and quickly go through chat as well, if possible. You're correct. As a Barca fan, he's a bad player. Yeah, I mean, I think, like, ultimately the thing is, Barca is one of the top clubs in football, right? And people are going to laugh at that comment now, but I think, honestly, if you're watching Depay, he's on fantastic form. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, he just didn't step up to the plate in Barcelona, and that's not a slight on him. He is playing for a weaker team now, and I think he's a starter there in his fixture there, and he probably enjoys his football more, and that's totally fine. But I think if we're saying that he's going to get consistent attacking options and he's super interesting, I would say definitely not. Good man, and go Liverpool. Go for that. Is Grealish a good option? I actually think Grealish is a good option. I think He's safer than Torres in the sense that I think Grealish is much less rotation prone. You just went right over my message, mate. Did I miss your message, Hibbs? I'm trying to look at everyone's message. I did. If this is your team, I think I did respond to this one. Yeah, I said I agree with this strategy. Nothing wrong with this. It's a solid team. Makes a lot of sense. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, you have a very similar team to the one I posted, and you get to Rafinha the exact same way that I pretty much do myself. So, yeah, no issues with that one. If that's your team, Hibbs. Best 6.9 midfielder. Probably still Rafinha in my opinion. Hey FPL captain, how are you doing? How many minutes do you think Ronaldo will get tomorrow? I'm going to say like something like 80 minutes maybe. Do you think Skip will start for Spurs? Yes, but I feel like you don't want to have Skip in your FPL team to start as a player. I mean, he can sit in your bench, but he's just not that interesting. I don't think he'll get any interesting attacking returns anytime soon. Don't know what to do about Rafinha this week. Should I take him out for Troy or just leave him? I think you just leave him because he comes back and then he has fantastic fixtures. That's just my personal opinion. And it's a bit of a waste of a transfer, right? Because I think Traore is a bit less of a proven quality in terms of how consistent he is in terms of getting FPL points. Chilwell or Alonso. I wouldn't mess with that. I wouldn't mess with the left backs, right? I'd probably try to just get James the next week, or I mean not the next week, but game week 7. I feel like you can get a centre back now who's a bit safe, and then you go for someone else. Carson takes up the City spot. As I said, I think this season I'm only going to play with really one midfielder and one defender from City, so I'm not too opposed to having Carson for a 1-week punt. Why not? Actually thinking that one would want to troll Pep Roulette 3 times a week. I mean, you can avoid Pep Roulette by having Diaz, you can avoid Pep Roulette by having Ederson, but who's really going to have Ederson in their team, right? So it's ultimately just Diaz, and then the only other player is going to be KDB, but KDB means basically dropping Salah, which is a little questionable. How long do you plan on having Diesel in my team? Honestly, I think I can see Diesel going up to Game Week 10. No update on Brazil ban yet. Yeah, so I mean, on terms of the Brazil ban, right? Every club is exercising their own individual kind of actions, I think, on the Brazilian ban. So we saw that, for example, Man United have not submitted Fred into their team sheet for tomorrow, which means he won't play. And that is an instance and an example of a club acting on their own behalf in terms of the response to the Brazilian team. So it's a Brazilian ban rather. So I think some clubs might just avoid the stress and just maybe not play. Carson won't play. He is like the 3rd or 4th string goalie. Well, just to let you know, he's the 3rd string goalie. The second string goalkeeper for Man City is isolating in United States, and the 1st string might not play. Please check Twitter. All right, I'll have a look at your. Christopher, you've convinced me. I'll respond to Max quickly. So I go for Niles and then use the transfer for Rafinha next week, or go Rafinha this week and save the transfer. So basically, I guess your question is, do you take a 1-week punt on Fornals? And I think I would probably say, yeah, you take that 1-week punt on Fornals and you go Rafinha, because Rafinha's not going to play this week. And anyways, you have Christensen, which is totally fine. All right. I will try and go as fast as possible, guys. Christopher, where's your message? So far away. So far away, Christopher. I'll try to get to you fast. James Wood. All right. I think it's a bit of a weak defense. That's the first kind of opinion I have of the team, unfortunately. Might just be because we had to budget down a little bit. I think the issue is that I really don't want to be in a position where I want to have double Brighton every week as a defense, and then also Arsenal when there are options in the 4.5 range. But I can understand if you're making budget cuts. However, if you do want to make a budget cut and you want to go for a 4.5 defender, I think maybe going for dropping Sissoko to Mendy. I think this makes a bit more sense because at least you have a bit more of a diversified defense, right? And then, Amartey is going to be fodder. That's whatever. Sissoko is fodder. Mendy is fodder. But hopefully you basically just hope Williams comes into your team and plays if he's ever called upon as a sub. Because I just feel like you want to have a non-double Brighton defense. I think that could hurt you quite hard very quickly. Khaled. Should you go Dean or Christensen? Can you please help? Any thoughts about your defense? I like the defense. I mean, I've spoken already why I think Dean and Semedo are slightly overpriced. But if you like those players, I'm not going to convince you otherwise. That's your personal choice, right? If you have the money to go for those players, that's totally fine. I would definitely say go Christensen over Dean, just because it allows for, I guess, somewhat better future planning. Plans to get Lukaku an upgrade. You like Semedo because you feel he's nailed and will not get rotated. Yeah, but I would say the same thing for Marcel, to be honest. But I mean, if you like Semedo, that's fine. You've got Reese James. Okay, that's fine. Makes sense. Plans to get Lukaku and upgrade Duffy to Christensen, play a 3-4-3, 4-3-3 hybrid. Yeah, makes complete sense to me. The midfield's strong. I like it. J. Paul Poor. Big stuff. Okay, we'll have to take a hit for Ronaldo. I think... Oh, okay, yeah. The issue is Son, isn't it? Would you wildcard this team? I would potentially wildcard, honestly. Like, I feel like this is a situation where I think it calls for a wildcard, because you want to get out of Fernandez, you want to get out of Son, you want to get out of maybe Veltman, potentially, right? And you want to be somewhat more better prepared to move your structure into Chelsea. And you could also capitalize on Ronaldo. Tony, I think, still is interesting. You've taken the price hit on him, that's fine. But I still feel like maybe adjusting to a free forward striker, I would like the wild card. But if you have 2 free transfers, let's theorize it just briefly. I think we want to get Son out as soon as possible, and maybe if we have 2 free transfers, and maybe we can just move Son for Son and change him with Tony. The issue, of course, is Rafinha this game week. Who's going to come in for our side? So we have 2 strikers. We can probably survive with, this kind of forward defense. Ideally, we're playing 3-5-2 consistently. We'll have to play a 4-4-2 this week, where we play Veltman and Shaw, I guess, and White, which I think is okay. That's fine. I think you maybe do a double transfer around Son and Tony. Oh, it's so hard, though, because you keep Fernandez in your team, and that's so tricky. Maybe you go -8, but that also sounds a bit ludicrous. What do you guys think? What would you guys do with this team? Would you go for a wild card, or how do you adjust the Son situation right now and the Fernandez situation? Another option, right, is you can kind of maybe go for DCL plus, let's say, another one of those like very strong 7.6, 7.0, 7.7 midfielders, and then you save the money in the bank so you can kind of move out of Fernandez for a -4 next week, right, and you live with that if you're okay with that. I feel like you could do that too. Why you don't make a poll for captain pick? Great reminder, Rio. I'll have a look in a second. Robs. I like the team. I like having Sar, but I feel like both Sar and Torre is a bit of a differential. I would probably pick one of them and try to balance your team a little bit more. I feel like your defense is actually a little bit too strong, and maybe like Dean could be changed for someone else, in my opinion. Because for me, I feel like Everton's defense is actually quite good, but it seems like Dean isn't getting to attack as much as possible. I know he has set pieces, but I feel like you could probably get away with a 4.5 Everton defender. A little bit risky for 2 to 3, but I have a feeling Lukaku and Ronaldo could massively hold. I'm not sure, to be honest. I feel like it is a little bit risky, but I guess ultimately the nice thing that you have going for yourself is the fact that you have, at least you have Jota in your team, at least you have Trent in your team. Why not? I mean, it could be a huge differential. So I'm actually going to say that makes a lot of sense. I'm going to do the captaincy poll right now. Max says, sorry, just to be a pain, would you do this instead and go Carson, Duffy, bench Rafinha, and go to a 4-3-3 so it saves the transfer, or still go for now in the one above? Yeah, I think if you go Carson, that's fine. I think, yeah, you can live with this team as well, to be honest, if you want to play this week. All right, I'm just going to make a captaincy poll. What do you think about Jimenez in place of DCL? I really don't. I think there's a clear drop in quality, in my opinion. I just feel like Jimenez's position this season has been much weaker. How long should we keep West Ham assets? I feel like we can actually move out of West Ham assets after this game for Southampton. I would keep Antonio in the near future. However, with Benrahma, I actually think that the time to move away from him could be after this week. I'm going to start a captaincy poll right now, guys. Captaincy poll. Ronaldo. Salah. Add option Lukaku. I still think Antonio is still a decent captaincy shout as well. I know Kane is a good shout, but I think not many people have Kane, so I'm not going to add Kane there. What is up with Son? Yeah, you might have to tell your dad to kind of move it around because basically Son is dealing with some sort of injury. So that could be an issue. Keep Antonio all season, mate. Yeah, I agree with that, Adnan. So I think you can move maybe away from Benrahma, but you would go for a wild card for that team, Mohammed? Yeah, that makes sense. Is DCL worth it if I'm on a wild card? I think so, yeah. I think DCL has fantastic fixtures. Apologies if you already answered this, but what's the reason for picking Benrahma over Fornals? I didn't pick Benrahma over Fornals. I also had Benrahma for the first 2 game weeks, so because I was watching him all preseason. Um, Another reason is simply I think both him and Fornals are very active on attack, but if you actually watch the way they counter attack, Benrahma is actually someone who is starting and leading the line sometimes at times and is actually ready to be on the end of a counter. It's just that obviously he didn't haul in the last game week, but I mean, Benrahma had 2 back-to-back weeks of double-digit hauls. You can't say. I don't think it's worth saying that. I mean, I don't think it makes sense to say that he's worse than Fornals or something like that, right? You have Kane. I completely hear that, guys. If you have Kane, I understand why you'd captain Kane. I'm just explaining that I think less people have Kane. I think for this week, people are overthinking CR7. Even if he blanks this week as captain, there's only one captain blank, and he's still a great option going forward. I mean, I think if you're wildcarding, it makes sense to go for CR7. If you want to see my transfer plans, if you look at my team, maybe if Torres goes for a price rise, I switch back to Greenwood, and I play around with that. My transfer plan in general is to maybe move out of Benrahma, and kind of play around with that. That's pretty much my plans in terms of the near future. I had Antonio and Benrahma early, so I'm quite ahead in terms of team value, I think, compared to most players, fortunately. So that's generally my plan. I have the option to go for Greenwood, and then I still have the money to go for Benrahma. And then I think by the time I save up a double transfer for game week 7, I'll probably do a double transfer where I drop Ronaldo and another defender for Reese James and Lukaku. I'm going to go back to Twitter very quickly because I think there's so many requests. Okay. Ollie wildcard team. Ollie, my guy, you're going to have to use the screenshot function. It's a solid team, though, honestly. I really like it. One of the first, 3-5-2 formations. It's still very solid. It keeps showing the team as well. Of course, the question is going to be raised, how do we get into Chelsea players, and what do you do about Rafinha? But I think if you have faith in Traore for the next few fixtures, that's totally fine. Torres, hopefully he basically continues to play. The issue, of course, is when you have Jota, Torres, and Greenwood, it's, they're maybe a bit rotation prone, but still there's the option of going for Mount. I guess, yeah, I mean, if you feel like you don't have to go for Rafinha, then I can completely understand why you can maybe save all 3 transfers and go into Chelsea players, or maybe just go for 2 Chelsea players in the meantime. But yeah, I mean, I like the team in general. I guess it's a bit more medium risk, medium reward because of the fact that you've gone for so many potentially rotation prone 7.0 players, but we know those players are playing for huge teams and consistent options. So it makes sense. Any better moves before locking it? I'm not opposed to this, to be honest. So it's a double up at Wolves, that's fine. I mean, if you like doubling up on Wolves, that's fine. If you want to keep Bassar, that's fine. I do think that it might be a case where you feel that the midfield is a little bit weak. Simply due to the fact that I think your team is almost too solid all around, right? You have the option of basically playing a 3-5-2 every week or a 3-4-3, and I feel like you should just cut down one of the players so that you can actually play a bit of a stronger side, because basically what you're going to miss out on is Trent, and I feel like the fact that you have a stronger bench doesn't cover for the fact that Trent will be in people's starting teams, and that's my general issue. I feel like your bench is just too deep. That kind of 1.5 or 1.6 million that you have on Sar, for example, can be moved elsewhere, in my opinion, and that's just how I feel about that. Christopher, I'm so close if you're still here. Apologies if you're gone, though. Thinking about swapping out Thomas for Jones after this game week. Yep, I think that makes sense. You still have Walker. Pogba is going to be a questionable one because I think he has to play deeper, unfortunately. No Salah on the team as well. That's interesting. Are you sure you want to go with no Salah? I guess you do get extra points for symmetrical color, but I'm not sure you get points for going no Salah and no Trent. How do you guys feel about that? No Salah, no Trent. That's very edgy, very differential. The team has a strong game week 4. I'm not sure about Pogba. I still think, honestly, I can't see Pogba hauling this. I can't see Pogba being a consistent hauler, basically. Even over compared to someone like Greenwood, who might be a bit more rotation prone. That's just my concern. There's almost too many differentials and too many, you're missing out on too much effective ownership, basically. And I feel like it's not worth it because the players that you're missing out on are actually consistent options. Do you reckon I should wildcard? I'm honestly lost this game. You have 0 transfers as I transferred Simcast out for Duffy. I don't think you have to. Okay, yeah. Well, so you have Rafinha, that's an issue. Fernandez is arguably an issue, but I feel like the only issue this week is really just Rafinha. Bamford could still maybe hold potentially versus Liverpool. The team becomes extremely solid the next week. I think you honestly you accept the fact that you have a really that you probably will have a rather weak week this week, and then you kind of move away from that. I might even also put Dunk over Rafinha, to be honest, but I do recognize the fact that you have 3 Brighton players, which I'm pretty shocked by. I think eventually when you do wildcard at this team, you've got to get rid of that. I finally arrived at Christopher. I'm so sorry about that. All right, Christopher has left us, unfortunately. Okay, so we have 2 accounts. I mean, this is a solid team, to be honest. No complaints, really. It's a very, very solid team. Sar is that differential option. Second team, not too dissimilar, to be honest. I think it's actually very similar. Still think I prefer team 1. FIFA ban lifted. Can you send me an official source? Alright, what is the actual results in the captaincy poll? So it's Ronaldo, and then Salah, and then Lukaku. I'm surprised Lukaku is so low, but I imagine that it's just due to the fact that Lukaku's ownership in the chat is very low. I'm going to end the poll there. Ronaldo has won by a far mile. It might be due to the fact that he's such a popular player, but we'll see what happens. Too much of a risk to miss out on both Salah and Trent Alexander-Arnold. I completely agree. You have no clue what to do with Son myself. I think the issue with Son is that you have Chelsea the next week, if he recovers, and then he's missing a lovely game versus Crystal Palace. So you probably do want to sell Son, if I'm being honest. Would I take a -8 or wild card? It really depends. I think, my question back to you is do you think a wild card now would be good, or are you trying to save up for a different type of wild card? But I personally, I'm actually generally happy to lock wild cards early. Yes, my wild card is locked. I have activated wild card if people are asking. Jimenez is going to be big differential this week. I mean, he could have been a big differential the last 3 weeks, but he didn't do it. Can we hear your transfer plans? I think, sorry, I did respond to that, actually. Is it listed? Paul Joyce on Twitter. Oh my god, guys. We have to take Carson out of our team, and he's already gone. Anyways, that's fine. No problem. God, Carson was in our team for such a long time. I mean, so I guess if for all the players who want a Rafinha in team, I guess you can have him anyways. But I mean, you probably weren't going to have him for the Liverpool game, right? So I think that's fine. All right, never mind. Thank you guys for sharing the news as well. I'm not going. No. Well, I guess Carson had a short-lived stay on the wildcard team, and he's gone now. Very sad. Just joined your chat now. Will you keep Alonso in defense of your wildcard? I've never had Alonso in my team, unfortunately. If you had Alonso in your team, I respect that. Awesome. But no, I don't have him in my team. Son and Ings out for 1. Lukaku / Benrahma, or 2 Ronaldo Gray. That's a tough one. I do kind of like Lukaku versus Benrahma just because it's a bit more rounded, but maybe Ronaldo Gray is a little bit better, I think, just for the next few game weeks, and you can kind of adjust your team structure if you're going to wildcard subsequently. The ban was more about there's no kind of ban. It was just more the fact that I think the Brazilian FA requested FIFA to prevent some of the Premier League players who were restricted from going on international duty for 5 days, which meant that they would have been precluded from game week 4, and that basically what people are saying when the ban is lifted is that they're gone. As in that potential ban was gone. Carson went from starter to never being seen ever again. It's a shame, really. I mean, anytime you have an option to bring in a 4.0 Man City keeper, I think it would have been funny and worth it to do with. I'm going to be honest, guys. I don't think I can check requests right now. They're just way too many. Okay, fine. I'll actually try. Fuck it. All right. Sorry about the swear word as well. Apologies about that. Seriously. All right. Fine. I think this makes sense. Great team. Shaw makes sense. Once again, it's more about like booking transfers. You know, maybe if you're fine with avoiding Rafinha, I can completely understand how you can get into Chelsea. That's fine. Very strong team. Everyone's wildcard teams are very similar, guys. I think you're going to be looking at those teams and be saying, you know, you're very similar teams. Ings plus Fernandes, Ronaldo plus Torres, or Jota. I would say Jota. Alantamani, Benrahma to Torres. Hey, Seth. Thoughts on this draft? Greenwood or Benrahma, Duffy to Christensen. Yeah, I think you definitely need a better third defender for sure. I agree with you. You probably have to cut down one of Torres, Jota, or Greenwood, in my opinion, to facilitate that. Because I feel like there are still good options such as Rafinha in the near future. And that probably means that you can justify upgrading Duffy, right? Otherwise, I think right now your defense is very, very thin. Because I don't think Hover is a starter for Wolves. So that would be my genuine worry. If you're on a wild card, that is. So yeah, I think Hover is just not a good option. Yeah. I think you also would like to go for Williams over Valerie. I'm not sure Valerie plays many games as well. So yeah, just in terms of strengthening your bench slightly as well, that would help. Haas. Thoughts on this wildcard team? Tempted to go Jimenez for DCL. I mean, if you're going for Jimenez, right? Please don't tell me you're going for 3 Wolves players. I know the stats look fantastic in terms of going for Traore. And that's fine, but I wouldn't double up on that because I still think they're rather unclinical right now. I also think that Jimenez isn't as, how would you say, like, I don't think he's as strong or as confident a poacher right now as he was 2 years ago, unfortunately. Maybe he'll pick up form when he scores and when his confidence builds up, but to go off the back with 3 Wolves players, I think is a bit too much for me. I think you just pick one or two. Thoughts on Christensen with Thiago Silva, a possible player to put him out in the team. I think Christensen's in fantastic form, 1. I think 2, yes, Thiago Silva could maybe push him out of the team, but I don't think that's the case. I feel like Tuchel is someone who rewards someone who plays consistently. Thiago Silva clearly is slightly lower down the pecking order, maybe due to the fact that he was playing for Brazil. But keep in mind, Christensen was also playing for Denmark. So I think Christensen is quite safe, to be honest. I like Christensen, and I would have him in my team. Rafinha on the bench. Yep, like this team, to be honest. One of the few people who's gone for Tierney. Rudiger makes sense. I would probably cut down and go for Christensen. All right, someone is actually at the door. I will come right back. All right, guys, never mind. False alarm. Let's have a look. Would you change anything in my team? I'm discussing with myself. You're discussing with yourself. Once again, honestly, please do not go 3 Wolves. I generally think it's a bit of a trap. I know Wolves look attractive, but they're not that attractive. I feel like so. Yeah, you can probably take Carson out of your team as well with the recent news. With Basuma, I mean, since you're on a wildcard, I feel like, I guess if you want to have Basuma, that's fine. I'm just thinking if you can actually spend that money a bit more wise. I still think DCL is better than Jimenez. That's pretty much what it comes down to. And you can still reach Jimenez if you cut down on Basuma, for example. Like, let's say if Basuma goes into Mendy, and then anything becomes your kind of bench fodder option, then you're kind of better off with that, right? I'm struggling here, guys. I'm going to have to take a break from Twitter after this one, but let's respond to this team. So I think with Dean, makes sense. Cancelo, a bit of a punt. Let's see if you have another defender to fill in. It's Livramento. I think that's a bit risky in that sense. I'm not saying Cancelo's rotation proof. I'm not saying that he's going to be rotated this week, but I feel like that is a bit of a risk. 3 premiums, of course, and no Trent. I just think Odegaard and Sarr, I think that's a very weak midfield. I think that's generally just my opinion on that. I think Odegaard is someone who, when you watch him play football, he's probably going to get the assist to the assist. He's not someone who, he actually improves, he 100% improves his Arsenal side. for example, if you look at his like Norwegian performances where they've actually been battering some sides lately, you'll see that he gets less assists, to be honest, and he plays a similar role, to be honest, for Norway. He's someone who kind of makes the pass before the pass, and I feel like for that reason, Odegaard just isn't worth it. I mean, obviously there's Gray there. I think Dean you can cut down in terms of price. You can even go for a cheaper Everton defender if you absolutely must. Cherney I think is a nice punt that I like. I probably would want to still shore up the midfield situation, as I said. But of course, if you really want to go for Ronaldo, Lukaku, Salah, I'm not going to say that that's wrong. I'm going to say that's very risky. And if you want to take that risk, that's totally fine. But just know that it is a risk. Are you wildcarding, and what's your team? I am wildcarding, yes. So my team is roughly going to look like this, but it could be flexibly changed into Greenwood here. So this is going to be my team for this week. Pretty much. It's going to be Greenwood or Torres. So yeah. Yep, just read that. Thank you so much for sending that across. As I said, going back to YouTube chat very briefly, Rafinha is playing, yes, but he is playing versus Liverpool. Sissoko, Jimenez, or Mendy, DCL. I kind of like Mendy, DCL a bit more, for sure. Torres or Greenwood. I'm gonna say. Oh, it's tough. I think Torres is interesting, but the issue is that he does run into worse fixtures first, and we don't exactly know how Pep is going to organize his team. Maybe in some of the tougher fixtures. That is one of my concerns, I think. So, who would I bench between Marcel and Dyer? So Dyer plays Crystal Palace. But keep in mind, guys, that I think there's a lot of suspensions, right, for Tottenham. Am I right? Romero's suspended. I believe Sanchez is suspended. I think Tanganga has to play centre-back, and it might be Emerson's first game. I might actually put Dyer on the bench, to be honest. Even though I think he has, on paper, the nicer fixture. I can accept your message requests, but there's just way too many messages right now. I'll try to respond to you guys in the right time, but I'm going to ignore Twitter for a bit. I've been streaming right now for roughly an hour and 30 minutes, so I will be logging off soon. Fran, please just buy Greenwood. Torres is such a trap. All right, you might have convinced me right there, to be honest. Oh, wait, actually, no, Jerome. I'm trying to get the price rise on Torres if he ever does reach it, right? Because Torres could hit a price rise, right? Jerome, get Torres to a price rise, and I'll get Greenwood. Okay, let's just make it happen. Let's just make it happen. All right, I will. Okay, fine. I'll cheat. I'll once again put it in another shift with Twitter. Ronaldo or Lukaku? I like the team. I think, given the fact that there's suspensions and issues like that, I guess you can live with Tanganga for a bit. But I would say that your defense is a little bit flimsy. I feel like the third defender is a bit weak there. I feel like you could maybe, of course, you put in Duffy, which, to be fair, I think, yeah, maybe you could get away with that. So if you do want to play the structure, and I think maybe it could just be a case of you having a restricted budget, that's fine. It makes sense. Greenwood or Torres, long-term Torres, both rotation risk. I agree, but I feel like the nice thing that Greenwood has going for him is that there are less people who could rotate with him. Because, for example, right, like, we're saying that Sancho and Rashford will come into the side, maybe. Sancho basically just needs some more time to gel, to improve in the side. And then Rashford will maybe come back and play left wing. But he's also contesting that spot now with Pogba, who's playing tremendously well in left mid. But I feel like that right mid position is only kind of being contested right now because Dan James is left between Greenwood and Sancho. And when you look at the form that Greenwood has had so far, I feel like there's a good enough justification to say that he continues starting. Whereas when we look on the other hand with Torres, yes, Torres has been fantastic, but there are literally 2 or 3 players who can be playing in his exact position. Whereas I think with the United situation, I'd say there's only arguably one player for now who could be rotating with him. Yep, the FIFA players are free. If you don't like Jimenez, would you take Bamford for next game week with Rafinha for Benrahma? I think you could do that. I wouldn't do it on a double hit, to be honest, because I feel like the thing is, if you have DCL, like, he can last many fixtures. But yeah, definitely, I would also think about going for Rafinha in the future. I like this team. So, I mean, you do keep Cresswell, which I guess is a bit of a concern. I do feel like Cresswell can be moved on. I would say a Wolves defender is who you want to put in. You have a little bit of a stronger bench than most teams, but I can understand that because maybe you think Torres is rotation prone, and maybe somehow if Torres misses a full game, then Gray can at least play in that situation. So I think I would probably just consider a Wolves defender potentially. Yeah, no, I completely got that. I think it's just, I guess if oh, so what you're saying is that you'll do a double transfer next week, or is that what you're saying? Or are you just going to go right off the back with Leeds players? I'd probably be more tempted to have Ben Rama for this fixture, and then maybe you can, if you're happy to do a transfer next week, then it can be Rafinha coming in. But you're saying next game week. Are you going to take a hit like that though? I mean, if you watch if you watch after the Arsenal game, for Pep Guardiola talks about players who can play in Ferran Torres' position. He names Sterling, and he names Kevin De Bruyne as players who can play in the false nine position. So yeah, and we've also seen Mahrez and Foden sometimes start there. So I know you're saying Ferran is playing as a striker. He clearly is playing as a striker, but you know, Pep has played pretty much without a striker before, so that's the issue. Um, but I see your point as well. Like moving from Greenwood to Torres potentially, that makes sense. I think I could even consider that as well, maybe even over Rafinha. Um, in my opinion, 3-4-3 is a must in fantasy. About two of the other three best strikers in the league. Whilst 3-4-3 is a must, it also is a suggestion that I think that you should have a strong defense. And I think the issue right now is that you do have a strong or rather weak defense. But I feel like I agree with your opinion on Spurs. They will struggle for goals. Adama is dangerous, but I don't think he's underrated. You can see Adama on a lot of teams. I think he's honestly close to being a trap, but that's my personal opinion on watching Traore play quite a bit. But I mean, still, honestly, because of the fact that you have a very solid team, anyways, and you have free premiums, that's more than enough to cover like a differential pick like Adama, so that's fine. No issues there. Is Rafinha a good option considering Brazil's situation? I mean, I would say so, but just not really versus Liverpool. Maybe I'll have to eat my words, but that's just how I feel about that. Yeah. No Trent, but once again, I feel like the biggest glaring issue with your team is just no Salah. I feel like you can't live without Salah, in my opinion. That's just how I feel. True, but I feel like why would you want to drop DCL into Bamford? I don't think DCL has necessarily poor fixtures. I'm happy with you to drop Ben Rama to Rafinha. Ferran has higher XG than Greenwood. But also keep in mind that Ferran also earned a lot of XG versus Arsenal, who are playing with 10 men. So you need to kind of put the context in the XG. XG isn't the best stat in the world, guys. You need to look into why someone has certain XG and also consider, can they repeat that? Can it translate to goals actually? And things like that. One of the first solid teams I'd say that I'm happy. As I said, I think as a general rule, if you're dropping Trent, you have to go Diaz, and I think you follow that rule in general. So I think this is a strong team. Yeah, that makes sense. Let's see. Oh god, have I skipped over people's messages? I need to check those later. EMZ. And some help for a friend too, please. On transfer twos. We have to get out of Son, right? Can we get into Ronaldo easily? Doesn't seem like it. I would honestly consider wildcarding here. But if you want to get away from Son for this week, I would just go Jota. All right, guys, I'm going to take a break from Twitter and quickly just go back on YouTube. Mahrez for Jota. I think that could make sense. Do you mean Jota for Mahrez? I wouldn't really go Mahrez for Jota. Fran just showed it on stream a few minutes ago from Twitter. I'm not sure if it's 100%, but I'm confident that Brazil followed suit for after Mexico and Paraguay. Yep, I think Paul Joyce made a tweet about it, so you can have a look at that. Semedo or Marcel, I'd probably say Marcel. White or Holding, I would say White. 100% White. Don't go for Holding. Because I think basically Arteta, when he plays a back three, is probably going to play Gabriel, Tomiyasu, and White. And if he plays a back four, he's going to play White and Gabriel. I think Holding is like that third option right now, or fourth even. Is Ronaldo worth captaining if I have Salah and Antonio? I think so, yeah. I think Ronaldo. I'm still going to captain Ronaldo. You know what? Just to make you guys feel a bit safer, if you are captain Ronaldo, I'll do it with you guys. Let's captain Ronaldo. Save my team. Is Ronaldo okay? White or Holding? Blah blah blah. Yep. Just check that. Have you got Traore? No, I don't have Traore. Is it possible to show the player ban lift news again? Yeah, absolutely. Premier League players cleared to play this weekend by FIFA after Brazil, Chile, Mexico, and Paraguay agreed to waive automatic 5-day restriction. Any updates on timescale for Firmino? Out until October, so 3 league games, confirmed by absolutely nobody. Nice. Also, yeah, if you guys could give us a like on the video and give us a follow on Twitter, that's awesome. Like, we've had so much kind of positive reception on this stream. But I have to say, it is getting very late now. I got my second jab of the vaccine, so I'm starting to feel a bit deteriorated, unfortunately. I do like the 2-3 hour live streams. Apologies, I wasn't able to push further today. But I hope you guys have a wonderful evening or wonderful afternoon or morning, wherever you guys are. It's awesome to have a lot of international fans around the world. But yeah. Jimenez versus Bamford, it was a question that I saw spammed. Let's say I'm gonna say Bamford for sure. What do you think about Jimenez in place of DCL? I feel like DCL still takes priority for me. If you want to go Jimenez, you should only do that because you have budget issues, but don't do that off DCL. Ronaldo maybe won't start. I mean, Cavani's not playing. Fred's not playing. Is he really going to start Martial? And if he starts Martial, then he's asking for it. Benrahma or Rafinha? Benrahma for this game week, and I think Rafinha for the medium term. Bench Bamford or Ben White? I'd probably bench Bamford, I think. I think there's good chances for an Arsenal clean sheet. Hey, Senna. Thanks for joining in. You're hoping the ban will stay. Okay. I've responded about Jimenez as well. Please don't try to spam the chat too much, or I'll have to time you out, unfortunately. Thank you, Jerome, as well. I will get Greenwood, and I'll confirm that with you tomorrow. Ferran Torres or Rafinha? I think Ferran Torres. I feel like you have to try to get both in your team ideally. But I would probably say I think Rafinha is just a bit safer, and just because that Rafinha at 6.5 is so interesting as an option, I think I would say Rafinha. Greenwood or Rafinha? Still Rafinha in my opinion. I feel like Rafinha is such a solid option after game week 4. I don't have him now. I plan to move away from him, but that's pretty much how I feel about that. Is Mount a good option? Only for game week 4, but 5 and 6 is really tough for him, so that's the issue. But yeah, thank you guys so much. I'm going to go off now. I know a lot of you guys have sent in tweets. It's really hard to actually, given the fact that you guys have given so much support, which is fantastic. Really, thank you guys so much. I haven't been able to respond to all the kind of Twitter DMs, but I'll try and respond to them as much as possible. We did try to go through as many teams as possible as well. I'll go through my team just quickly and show. My team is probably going to be this team, guys, but I think Greenwood will come in. Greenwood will probably come into this team. So that's going to be the situation there. Alright, guys. I am going to go to bed. Take care wherever you guys are in the world. Thank you guys so much for watching the stream. Please feel free to check out some of our YouTube videos as well. We do try to make a lot of analytical content. So I'll kind of pick, freeze frames from games to analyze. We do try to take a tactical approach and look at, players and things like that. We have a cheat sheet kind of updated every week where I'll talk about all the assets in FPL and my opinions on them if you guys want to listen to that, in your free time. But otherwise, have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you guys soon. Take care, guys.